So we can start. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this panel on access to space. My name is Beatrice Sabatinelli. I'm a director at the PwC Space Practice, and I will be your moderator for this session. Now, you may wonder why space and why access to space in this setting. Well, space is not only still for many elements the pinnacle of technology, but satellites are, and satellite technology is the enabler of many terrestrial applications. We've seen talks today about cloud computing, about AI, and space is right there as a deep tech and a key enabler of many of these terrestrial applications. And satellites have to be launched, so there's nothing more pertinent than access to space. Now, the title of our panel today is "There an Alternative to SpaceX?" Maybe it's a bit provocative. But indeed, in the past decade, SpaceX has reshaped the global launch industry. Just looking at some figures for 2024, SpaceX was making more than 50% of all launches, of which we have to say that a conspicuous amount of launches were internal demand through for Starlink. So in this session, we bring together key voices from the French and the European ecosystem and explore how Europe can respond to this paradigm. So we have an exceptional lineup of panelists today, featuring representatives from both industry and institutions. I will start with Steven Rutgers, who's the Chief Commercial Officer at Arianespace since 2023. Before, he held leadership roles across Europe, Asia, and the Americas, including with Inmarsat, Stratos, and Hyber. Thank you, Steven, for accepting our invite and participating.
Pleasure, thank you.
Aurélie Bressollette, she's the CEO of Latitude since 2024, bringing over 2 decades of experience from top European satellite integrators, Airbus Defence and Space and OHB System, as well as innovative new space ventures like Redwire and Rivada Space Networks. Thank you, Aurélie, for being here with us. And Maxence Brichoux is the head of space projects at DGE, the Direction Générale des Entreprises, where he helps shape the national and European space strategy. Thank you as well, Maxence, for being here with us. So we'll begin with a few open questions to set the scene and dive into the key topics, and then we will leave 5 to 10 minutes at the end for your questions. I would like to start with a question for you, Steven. In this evolving ecosystem, with SpaceX taking so much space in the launcher market, what do you see as key differentiating factors that European launchers could leverage to maintain a position on this market?
Thanks, Beatrice. First of all, good afternoon, everybody. Lovely that you're here. Thanks very much. So what differentiates Europe? I'll get into this, but I'll take a step back. Why do we have European launchers in the first place? Because it's relevant. It's relevant today. In the 60s, Germany and France created a communication satellite called Symphony. And they wanted to launch Symphony, and they had to go to NASA. And NASA said, this technology competes with our Intelsat capabilities. We'll launch it for you, but only if you promise not to commercialize it. And it was at that moment that France, Germany, and Europe realized we cannot depend on other countries in order to have access to space. So as Beatrice mentioned, Europe has all of these strategic capabilities: secure communication, Earth observation, science missions, that we want to be able to launch ourselves. And so for the past 44 years, the Ariane program has been launching hundreds and hundreds of missions using the Ariane launcher family. And what sets us apart is three main things. First of all is the launcher. So we now have the Ariane 6 launcher, which is successfully launched for the second time earlier this year. The first commercial launch for the French Ministry of Defense. The rocket is 60 meters tall. It can launch 23 tons into low Earth orbit, 11.7 tons into GTO. So 23 tons into low Earth orbit. I think a Renault 5 is about 1.5 tons. So it's 18 Renault 5s that you can launch. So it's a huge rocket, very powerful. Second thing that differentiates us is our launch base, which is in the south, in Kourou, in South America, in French Guiana. And why do we, as Europeans, have a launch base there? It's because it's close to the equator. And so the closer you are to the equator, the more you can use the centrifugal force of the planets. We have astrophysicists here that are much better at explaining this than me, but you can use the centrifugal force of the Earth to inject more powerfully the satellites into orbit. It has other advantages. We can talk about that at length, but this is one of them. We have world-class facilities like clean rooms, it's highly secure, etc. And then we have services. So Arianespace, for 44 offices, has 4 offices, Paris, Tokyo, Singapore, and Washington. And so we're really close with our customers, which is quite unique in our industry. And we have been doing that for many, many decades.
Thank you, Steven. And Aurélie, do you have a view on this? What can be differentiating factors of the European launchers, if any?
Yeah, of course. So first of all, it's great being here. First time at VivaTech, and I'm completely amazed because I only go to space conferences. And it's nice to see that it's not just space and deep tech. Yeah, I can only agree with what Steven just said. You know, we've developed something. So, you know, Ariane was built years ago, and we can be proud of that. And I think now a new era is starting. So, as you know, SpaceX has taken all the market, so to say, or almost all the market. But we have courageous and ambitious companies, of course, like Ariane Group, but also like Rocket Lab, for those who know, was developed a dedicated launch service capability. Company from New Zealand, and you know, they've shown that it's possible to do space and access to space differently. And so the ambition we have at Latitude is really working on those steps. So we believe that access to space should be given to everyone. We believe also into dedicated access to space. And that is only possible if we build our own capabilities. In Europe, in France, so Latitude is based in France, and this is exactly what we are doing. There is a sentence I heard lately, and I really like it, and I think it will probably resonate with the panelists. Someone said, well, you know, since what happened with the new government in the US, and well, basically it has made Europe great again, or at least it's the possibility to make Europe great again. And I love that parallel, and I think it's true that there is right now an opportunity to seize for Europe, but we need to give ourselves the capabilities to do that. And so ambitious companies, you know, need to get support. They need to be able to get access to markets. And this is at least what we are trying to do. I think at least our both companies are trying to do that.
Thank you, Aurélie. And Maxence, to pick up on that, as a representative of the institutions, what do you think are the most effective levers that institutions have to foster this technology develop and the access to market?
Yeah, so thank you very much, and thank you to all. It's good to see that we talk about space at VivaTech, and there is a huge amount of persons interested. So I don't want to complain, but crafting industrial policy on launchers is a bit difficult task, and I will explain why. But I think the key asset that member states, France, Germany, Italy, can bring to the table is political will and continuous support. So, as was said by Steven, there has been continuous will by France since General de Gaulle up to now with Germany and Italy to have autonomous and sovereign industrial access to space on all segments, launch pad, launchers, and satellites. So political will is here. It was reaffirmed by President Macron. It is an issue that is directly discussed with Chancellor Merz and Prime Minister Meloni. So there is a will now, more than ever, to continue investing public funds. Because when you see what's going on in Ukraine, when military operations are directly related and dependent on space assets, when you see the uncertainty coming from the US, it's clear that space is a critical element of EU sovereignty. So again, I mean, the political will is the key element. It has to be sustained, and it has been sustained, and it will be sustained in the decades to come. When you say that, there's already we have a pretty good idea of what we're going to do. So it was agreed in 23 and will be reaffirmed at the coming ministerial conference of the European Space Agency that we will be supporting the heavy launcher Ariane 6. We will be supporting the medium launcher Vega C from Avio, the Italian launch providers. So we are just ensuring practical, successful operational access to space, but at the same time we are heavily investing in the future with newcomers and new technologies. So the European Space Agency is currently delivering on a European Launcher Challenge, so basically a competitive process to select the most promising startups. We have been investing at the national level with the investment plan France 2030. So we are eager, and we are aligned with that with Germany, Italy and the Commission to see a bit more competition, to select the best athletes, the best technology. But it's clear that having autonomous access to space, working with the full filière, with Ariane Group, CSG and others, is a pillar of everything, because having the capacity right now is clear. And in that aspect, I will end here. It's clear that the framework has to change, and both the French National Agency, CNES, and the European Space Agency have to shift a bit in the way they are working with the industry. So playing more as an anchor customer to foster innovation, and a bit less of public-funded R&D. But we still have to be clear that we cannot have multiple actors, and that mutualization of investment, private and public, is critical. Thanks.
Thank you, Maxence. And to go back to one topic that was touched upon briefly also by Aurélie and in a panel before, the current geopolitical environment. Of course, it's very uncertain with the US and tariffs being announced one day and the next we don't know. But do you see, I will start with you, Steven, do you see threats but also opportunities for your market from this geopolitical context?
So yes, we'll get to the tariffs part, but if we look at what the main dynamics are from a geopolitical perspective in space, and Maxence, please jump in if you want. So what we see first is we see huge institutional investment around the world, not just in the US, Russia, China, but Kenya has a space agency. Egypt has a space agency. Space is becoming more and more important. Secondly, in 2019, the US classed space as a war theater, potential war theater. And this has a tremendous impact on how we operate in space. Third, we see all kinds of new technologies that are being explored and adopted. Things like orbital transfer vehicles. So imagine that it's basically a thruster that can bring a satellite from low Earth orbit into geo orbit or into different parts of orbit at any time. You can have bodyguard satellites or inspection satellites. So there is an explosion of technology that is going to take place in space. And then how does this impact us? Tariffs I can tell you when those tariffs are announced, what we do is we get together. We should actually call you, Beatrice, and we shouldn't try to figure this out ourselves. But and the volatility is difficult to deal with. It doesn't have a huge impact on us directly, but it has a real impact on our customers. It has an impact on customers that want to launch from the US. It has an impact on our customers that want to sell services to the US. And in the background of all of this, SpaceX is by far the biggest dominant player. And so people don't want to be dependent on SpaceX. They don't want to be dependent on the US. And here there are definitely opportunities for Europe. Europe has a really strong, proven identity and heritage, a super reliable space program. And so customers want reliability, they want a good price, and they want availability. And this is something that we're really pushing on. And we just launched this new rocket. And to give you an idea, we've launched 2, but 30 additional launches have already been procured. So it's not just us saying, yes, this is really an opportunity for us. It's our customers that are saying, we really believe in what you're doing, not just as a rocket, as a launch base, but also us as Europeans.
Thank you, Steven.
Comment on this. I mean, I, again, completely agree with this. And to give you numbers for those who are not in space, so last year there were 450 something launches made worldwide. And in Europe, how many? 3, thanks to you. Otherwise it would be 0. So that's the urgency. And this is not normal, right? So we have to get back launch and space access to Europe. And especially right now in terms of, you know, conflicts and tensions and all that. So you know, many people ask me, well, you know, there are so many new launch companies popping up here and there. Isn't that too much? And the answer is no. I think it's too little. So of course, there will be probably, you know, some who will not make it, and some companies will probably come together. But overall, I think it's good. I think it's good we have ambition. I think it's good that people find the investment, find the support to start these kind of companies. And then, of course, you know, some will be viable, some not. That's fine. But we need to continue that effort. You know, we cannot just sit there and be dependent on the US or other countries for our access to space. So I think that's absolutely essential.
Maxence, do you want to give your perspective?
Yeah, it's clear that price is not everything. So first of all, strategically speaking, it's clear. I mean, this is obvious, and we have already touched upon it. But autonomy is really worth a lot those days, and member states, European member states, are ready to invest in that and to pay the price. But on the market side, it's clear that nobody likes monopoly, and there is a clear need for more competition on the global stage, private sector, for private demand, private market for launchers. And I'm sure that customer, and I'm happy to listen more from the industry, but price is one thing, availability of launchers and reliability of launchers is one thing, but the ability also to address specific needs is another criteria. In any case, I mean, this is not that we believe, but it is a matter of fact that there is demand for alternative and competitors to SpaceX. And I would say this is true for launchers, but definitely, as you said in your introduction, access to space launchers is just part of the much bigger picture of space, and there is also a strong demand for alternative when it comes to connectivity, internet broadband, Starlink, and we, at the European level, we are also very much working on investing in a European constellation called IRIS², which will compete, which will satisfy governmental needs, but also satisfy B2B markets. So this need for alternative, for political and economic reasons, is very strong and will last. And the news coming from the US shows that depending on one actor, this one being a bit special, to say the least, is really key for everyone.
Thank you, Maxence. I've been shown that we need to wrap up. We have 5 minutes before we open the floor to Q&A. I would like to still address a few topics. Aurélie, so Maxence touched upon the topic of price. Price per kilo is still a metric that was quite dominant in the comparison of launchers. In your view, is this still so relevant?
Well, I could spend hours on this topic, but I'll try to keep it short. If you allow me a comparison, it's a little bit like when you look at the prices on Ryanair, and then you look like, wow, that's super cheap. So why would that fly on Air France? That's like twice the price, right? And you buy your ticket, and then you see like, oh, okay, I don't have a reserve seat, so I add a seat to that. Then you want to take in your luggage, so you add this. Then it takes you to an airport that is very, very far from the city that you want to get to. So you need to, pay a cab or transportation, whatever. It's exactly the same thing with launchers. When people talk about price per kilo, that's basically the price to take a certain amount, so what we call payload, to space. So now it doesn't say anything about final orbit, for example, nor does it say anything about the fact that you will be with other passengers on board the launchers, which means that you may have to wait for your launch because the main passenger is late, and being late in space happens a lot. So all of this add costs. So the fact that you don't have your final orbit when the launcher leaves you in space, of course there are transporters, there are space SOGs, but you need to add that to your cost. And then there is also the fact that, again, you will have to wait. So that's money you do not make in that time, and many other factors like this. So what our definition is something different. It's the total cost to orbit. So that is fair. It's the same with the flight. It's basically you want to go from your home to your final destination, your final hotel. That's what you should, and with your luggage, whatever you have in mind, this is what you should compare when you check different kind of transportation. So that's basically the same.
Thank you. Then maybe for you, Steven, considering the evolution in the ecosystem, the new players that are coming up, a certain tendency for fragmentation that we have in Europe now, what do you see as a future for the Ariane and Vega programs? Do you think they're going to continue, or are we going to go into a scenario in which there are going to be many players and in competition in Europe even?
So I'm going to answer this in two parts, because one, I love the price per kilogram question. Thank you for the Ryanair Air France comparison. I'm just going to address it because it's not just the price per kilogram. You provocatively put up SpaceX, so let's go into the numbers. You mentioned 450 launches last year. SpaceX did 134. 70% of those were for Starlink, their own constellation. Of the remaining 30%, 15% was for institutionals and 15 was for commercial customers. Number one. Number two, the US government procured recently a whole set of launchers from SpaceX, Blue Origin, and ULA. SpaceX won $5.9 billion for 28 launches, which converts into $211 million per launch for a Falcon 9. If you translate, a Falcon 9 price on the commercial market is around 65 million US dollars. So why is the US government paying on average $211 million per Falcon 9 launch? Because it's governments that are always involved. SpaceX is not a purely commercial company. It really is not, and it's a fallacy. So what's the future for the competitive European Ariane program? Ariane 6 is going to be here at least for another 10 years. Building a launcher, even a smaller launcher, takes many, many years of investment, and it's very hard. And then to make an even larger launcher takes many more years and more money. And in Europe at the moment, Europe makes a commitment to Ariane 6 of 4 launches per year. We can go up to approximately 10 launches per year. And so the institutional demand is not really there to have a lot of very big, heavy launchers. So first of all, we need to really understand what the European demand is going to be. How do we support this demand? This is our raison d'être. And the second question is, how are we competitive on the market? The third is we're going to need a family of launchers, not just Ariane 6. We're going to need Latitudes. We're going to need Vega because I don't want to speak for you, but Latitude's capability is not as big maybe as an Ariane 6, but it's like a surgical insertion. So if you have a specialized satellite that you want to place in orbit, you call Latitude. And so we need that full family of capability. And to give you an idea what a European launcher means, an Ariane 6 is made by 13 countries in Europe, 600 suppliers, 13,000 engineers. I get goosebumps when I talk about it. This is a really huge European effort. And so that's what I see the future as being. More young people that are getting into space, more investment into space, big, ambitious, and a unified goal of where we want to be in Europe. It's important that we do this. So I really thank you for coming and get involved in the space race. We need you.
Thank you. I would like I think we have time for 1 or 2 questions from the audience.
Thank you very much for the pitch. I enjoy. Personally, I learned from your pitch how to pitch. My question is on June this year, 5th of June, we sent the first European rover to the moon. Who launched it, and if you were not that company, why? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. So we aren't launching the rover to the moon. We are part of a moon program, which is going to take a few years before we get there. We have the Artemis program, and so we look forward to participating there, but we simply don't have that capability today. And Ariane 6 took a little longer than we were hoping to be ready. And so we simply did not have launches available to support this mission. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Is there any other question from the audience?
I just wanted to ask a question. Ground astronomy right now is being obstructed a little bit by low orbit satellites that are decommissioned and can't fall back into Earth's orbit. Do you have a comment to make on that? Maybe something in the future that you see in technology innovation?
Yeah, of course. I mean, space debris is a big topic, that's for sure. And it has become very central, actually, to consideration, institutional programs, and all that. So Latitude has signed the Space Debris Convention, which is basically to respect certain rules in terms of not leaving trash in space. So our first stage, for example, comes back down, and the second stage burns into the atmosphere. We can definitely do more. Of course, people talk reusable launcher. That's a very complicated business case. I won't go into details here. So it's not a given for everyone to do reusable. I think this is why Ariane was not built as a reusable launcher. But definitely that is something that we are, I think, all very aware of, and that we're trying to take into account. And it will be taken more and more into account. So.
Yeah, if I could add to that, debris in space in general is an issue. It's not just the satellites in low Earth orbit. So we have, for example, a reignitable upper stage, so that with the last boost of the upper stage, we can deorbit the upper stage. We've signed the same charter, but we actively work with our customers to make sure that the end of life, that satellite comes down and it doesn't remain in space. There are millions of pieces of space junk. It's not 1,000. It's not 1 million, it's 10 million pieces that are bigger than a couple of smaller than a couple of centimeters. But as you're traveling in low Earth orbit at 25,000 kilometers an hour, imagine those pieces hitting other satellites and then creating this knock-on effect, which is called the Kessler syndrome. If we no longer have access to low Earth orbit, it would be a huge issue. So it's a problem for astronomers today, but it's a huge problem that we collectively need to resolve and focus on.
Good afternoon, thank you very much. My name is Louis Fontaine. I have a quick question. So from what I understand, on the supply side, we have technologies being developed, like with Latitude and MySpace, for instance. But for the demand side, as everyone is talking about sovereignty and the geopolitical context, do you think that the defense applications for space will be an enabler for the sector to develop more, especially with the public contracts, and to put the coin in the machine and to eventually ramp up all of this in an alternative SpaceX eventually?
Yeah, of course. It's clear that, as it was mentioned, that there is a flow of public investment and procurement into the space sector, which is very key, and this is where the competition is going on. Actually, first of all, the public money. So the leverage we are going to consider at the member states level is going through the EU space program, basically. There are already critical constellations in orbit, such as Copernicus for science, Earth observation, and Galileo for navigation, which is very well working. And clearly, what we are discussing right now with Commission is a significant increase to address, I would say, the broad scope of security needs. So military is one thing, but we also have critical uses for many aspects of public policy in agriculture, in crisis management, like floods or fire, or whatever you can think of. But we think that the European Union and the Commission basically is well placed to mutualize the investment with the support of member states and ESA to be sure that we have the right capability. And then there is the upper level of pure military and sovereign needs, which is always a legitimate objective for France, for Germany and Italy. The main thing here is to ensure that everything is compatible. Maybe we can look after for more interoperability, that all the assets we've evolved around the backbone that IRIS² will provide in terms of connectivity and data transfer from the ground and to space, leveraging existing national assets and EU assets. So there's many things to do, actually. And I will mention that there are strong interest from non-EU countries to contribute and to partner with the EU on this kind of space assets. So you can think about European countries like the UK or Norway or other countries in Asia or broader scope. But it's clear that being neither China, Russia or the US has a strong value in all that components.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we have to close. Thank you so much for attending, and thank you to our panelists for the very good discussion.